3 tips to win every game of Risk you play. These tips are not bullet points per se, but rather stair steps to a final secret weapon. The first 2 points are somewhat fundamental, but you must master understanding of them before you can move to black belt and deploy tip number 3. Let's get to it. Most of you probably don't realize the reason the game is called Risk is because the whole game is a big exercise in risk-reward ratio, or known by the Hasbro Elite as the R3 score. For, of course, the 3 R's, risk, reward, ratio. So let's look at the R3 score, which, as I mentioned earlier, is an amateur concept, but you must learn to pass and dribble before you master the reverse alley-oop dunk. Here's the familiar board with the 6 continents, the whole gang, minus Antarctica. Not since Ernie Hudson missing on the poster of Ghostbusters have we seen such disrespect. I digress. 6 continents. As you know, each continent conquered grants you a set number of extra troops at the start of your turn. North America is 5, South America is 2, and so on. So what's the best strategy to start with? I think most beginners gravitate towards Australia because there is only one way in and one spot to defend. This makes sense, but let's look at the math and calculate the R3 score for each continent. Let's start with North America. The white X's represent points of entry that require defense in order to hold the continent. So for example, we have the southern front in Central America. This territory needs to be held to keep South America out. In total, North America has 3 points of entry. The aforementioned southern front, the western front in Alaska, and the eastern front in Greenland. So to calculate the R3 score for a continent, which remember is the risk-reward ratio, then we need to take the reward divided by the risk. The reward is the number of troops we stand to gain, 5 in this case, and the risk is the number of fronts that we must defend, 3 in this case. This gives us 5 divided by 3, or an R3 score of 1.67. Let's do another one. What is Europe's R3 score? Well, for starters, we have the same reward as North America with 5 troops to gain, but a greater risk. With 4 points of entry, the western front of evil Iceland, the villain from Mighty Ducks 2, the south front in Spain, the southeastern front in Italy, and finally the eastern front in Russia. This gives us an R3 score of 5 over 4, or 1.25. Zooming back out, North America has an R3 score of 1.67, 33% higher than Europe's score of 1.25. This should come as no surprise to the riskers out there, as we know Europe is notoriously difficult to conquer first. So now that we know how the R3 score is calculated, let's look at all of them at once. Let's start in the lower left. South America has the worst R3 score on the board at 1. Surprising because it only has 2 entry points, but unfortunately the math just doesn't work out due to the low reward. Next, Africa is tied with South America at 1, but like Europe, Africa is a hard one to conquer first. Australia comes in with a game high 200. This confirms our natural draw to the continent down under. Finally, Asia comes in second place at 1.75. I think this may be surprising to many, as this is such a daunting continent to take on with so many entry points, but this leads us to tip number 2. Notice the 1.75 has an asterisk next to it. Let's take a closer look. You must defend the northeastern front from the Alaskan Yankees. In the southeast, you must defend against Indonesia, and in the southwest, you must hold off a couple of different African territories. But here's the trick. It appears there are still 2 Asian territories left to defend against Europe, right? Wrong. All you need to do is jump over into Europe and hold the Eastern European territory and treat it as the 4th and final entry into Asia. This reduces your risk factor from 5 to 4 and typically won't bother anyone because usually nobody tries to conquer Europe early in the game. The maneuver is called the Communist Block spelled with a CK at the end. The Communist Block allows you to hold the entire continent of Asia and its 7 reward factor by only holding 2 territories on the west side. So again, this is how we end up with an R3 score 1.75 for Asia. Asia rocks. All right, still though, The communist bloc is not an advanced move, but we're building here, stair-stepping to the pro tip, which is continental combos. The key to deploying the continental combo is thinking north-south, never east-west. The first continental combo is the Western continental combo. The key here is when you work on conquering either North America or South America, always have in the back of your mind that you will expand into the other America once you get the first. When you do this, you lose risk factors because you no longer need to defend the common border. And now you only have 3 points to defend. So think about conquering North America first, which has 3 risk factors. Then when you expand south into South America, you've added reward but held steady with the risk. Let's do the math. 7 total troops divided by only 3 points of entry equals a continental combo R3 score of 2.33. Recall that the highest R3 score of any continent by itself was only 2.00 for Australia. This crushes that. So the Western combo is 2.33. We also have the Central Continental combo and the Eastern Continental combo. And here are the R3 scores for each combo. Check out the Eastern combo coming in at a whopping 3.00. Asia killing it once again. The score in the Eastern combo is so high because you could be holding Asia and expand in Australia, and you actually decrease in risk factor because your southeastern front just completely goes away. Awesome. The Central combo has the lowest R3 score and therefore should really be avoided unless you find yourself stuck in there while other regimes are beating each other up elsewhere. Also note that both the Central combo and the Eastern combo depend on the communist bloc to give that score, which means that the Central combo needs to hold the Middle East in order to work. But again, this usually doesn't bother anyone too much because most people don't try to take Asia early in the game. The communist bloc is really a tool because it's really a cool tool because you can set up a line of defense that splits the whole world into 2 sides, all by controlling 2 measly territories. Finally, I want to remind you that what I said earlier, which is the real secret here that makes this work, and that you must go north and south when you combo, or south to north. East-west will not work. So that is the big secret here. Don't even try an east-west combo. You'll be tempted to do it, but I'm telling you, it doesn't work. Check the math. The only one that would come close to working is if you already had Africa and you expand into South America. This increases your reward while keeping your risk the same, but this relies on you first conquering Africa, which has the lowest R3 score on the board and infamously hard to conquer first. So in summary, the 3 tips are R3 score, communist bloc, and continental combos. Again, the real secret here is to go north-south with continental combos. Thanks for listening. Go Conquer.